Americans' views of their own financial situations has hit an all-time low. That's according to a recently released survey by the University of Michigan, which measures monthly consumer sentiments. Some respondents said higher prices are hurting their personal finances. And many now believe that inflation will only grow in the long run. Let's bring in former Treasury official, Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Ratner with charts looking at this issue. So let's start with inflation, which, gosh, I can't imagine it higher. What are you seeing, Steve?
Yeah, look, Mika, it's pretty incredible that yesterday you had the Treasury Secretary saying it was the best economy ever.
Right.
Literally the day before, you had the University of Michigan releasing its latest consumer sentiment numbers showing that it's hit an all-time low. And there are actually two measures of how the consumers feel about it, which are interesting to see because they tend to track. One is from the Conference Board, and it measures how consumers feel about the broader economy, jobs and things like that. And the other is Michigan, which measures how they feel about their own finances. And as I said, they used to track very closely, and now they've diverged widely. And you've got consumers basically at the 73-year all-time low in terms of how they feel about their own finances, and not feeling great about the economy, but feeling substantially different about the broader economy. So why is that? As you said, inflation is in the picture. And this measures actually not inflation, but how consumers think prices are going to behave over the coming year. How much are they going to go up? So how are they feeling looking forward? Back at the time of the election, it hit a recent low at 2.4%. People thought inflation was well under control. Then you had Liberation Day with the tariffs, and everybody explaining the tariffs are going to add to inflation. Expectations shot up here over 6%. Then they declined again, but now with the war, they're up to 4.8%. So inflation is running at the moment at 3.8%. Consumers think it's headed to 4.8%, and that adds to this incredible pessimism.
So I just curious, as you get to the next graph, wonder where the Treasury Secretary is getting his information, and then if you could talk about where profits are versus wages.
Yeah, so it is. People talk about something called the K-shaped recovery. It's a kind of funny way to think about it, but K meaning it goes up for some people and it goes down for some people, and that's what we're seeing. The overall economy is still growing, as I just said, but when you look at how it's affecting different groups of Americans, you get to very different answers. So here we again take the Michigan consumer sentiment numbers. You can see that 73-year all-time low. On the other hand, you've got stock valuations at essentially close to an all-time high. And so it has gone very well for owners of stocks and very badly for people, average Americans. Another way to think about it is corporate profits. Corporate profits were ticking along at a 13% growth rate. That's a lot, obviously, 13% year over year every quarter. But in the first quarter of this year, it shot up to 28%. That's part of why the stock market is doing so well, obviously. So the owners of the stocks are doing quite well. By the way, the top 1% of Americans own 50% of the stocks. The top 10% own 87% of the stocks. But for the average American, there's just been fairly modest wage increases, 3.8%, year over year relative to corporate profits going like this. So you've got owners of stocks and higher income people doing incredibly well, people at the bottom doing not so well. And also, last comment on this, inflation is now running ahead of wage increases, so people are actually losing ground in terms of how much they can buy.
And so, Steve, that disparity brings you to the next chart about how much wealthy people, homes with high net worths, are spending right now. And you kind of use the example of gas prices, which are difficult for many, many Americans, but not felt by wealthy Americans.
Yeah. So people, if you listen to corporate CEOs talking, they all say that people toward the bottom are cutting back, people toward the top are spending more, and that is supported by the numbers. The top 10% of households now account for more than 45% of total spending, which leaves the bottom 80% with less than 40%. And you can see this trend, which has been going on for a good while, the lines have crossed, and now the top 10% well above the bottom 80%. There was an interesting study recently, just to pick one example of a product people buy, if not every day, certainly every week, which is gasoline, and what's happened there. So this tracks how different income groups, higher income, middle income, lower income, buy their gasoline. And basically, again, it tracked pretty closely until you get here. And since the war, wealthy people have maintained their share of gasoline purchases. People in the middle have been cutting back sharply. People at the bottom have cut back even more sharply. And so, again, you can see this K-shaped economy where the wealthy can still buy gasoline and people of middle and lower incomes are being forced to cut back on something that, again, most people need every day to get to work or get to school or get to somewhere.
Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Rattner, thank you very, very much for that.